everybody. I'm Dr. Vanessa Theme Ament, and this is Holy Foley. And today's guest is Kathie Talbot, who specializes in unique sound design using music, sound effects, and vocal treatments for film and movie trailers. Some of the projects Kathie has contributed to, and this is just a few, because there are many, are Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness, The Shape of Water, Tenet, and Captain America, The First Avenger, but there are so many more. Kathie started, and this is how I knew her, many years ago, as a singer and actor in theater and film. Welcome, Kathie, and I'm so excited to talk to you. This is really exciting.
This is so fun after all these years.
I know. We were just young lasses when we started knowing each other. So this is exciting. I can't wait to talk to you about everything you're working on, because you do film and television and long form and film trailers, which is an area that I've talked to people who do film trailers when I've written about it in my book and in chapters, but you're the first person I've talked to in my YouTube channel and podcasting about this. And what your work is so unique.
Oh,
and your background is so unique. And I want to get started talking about one of the things that I got kind of fascinated about when I was reading about your interest is the concept of musique concrète, which I studied when I was getting my PhD. And I know that's one of the things that informs you. But I want to talk about the work that you do and how you do it, how you approach it, and some of the projects you've done. And when I was looking at your trailer on your website, and I saw that you worked on some of the films that you've worked on and the projects you've contributed to, it's quite an array of genre and projects. And it's kind of exciting to me because I know you from back when we started together as a singer and actor. And I know that you came from New York, and I know that you started out doing some film and television, and we started together in a play together in musical theater. So I want to know what your journey was like getting started in this, how you approach it, how you work. I looked at your website and I saw your studio, and your space is lovely.
Aw.
And it's a beautiful space, and your equipment is fascinating. So I want to hear about your work and how you approach it. So if you could just get started with what you do, how you approach it, what your work is, and kind of give our viewers and listeners a bird's eye perspective on what you do and how you approach it, that would be a good place to start.
Okay, thank you. So basically my trajectory was, I knew you and we were doing live theater together. And basically, I mean, my gosh, it's been over a 40-year journey to find this, which frankly resonates with me the most. But we can't do that to ourselves, because where you come from is part of what makes you who you are today.
Oh, yes.
So I have to remember that. And I can't do oh, if only I'd started when I was in my 20s or 30s. But anyway, this particular career, I started, I was writing, frankly, house music back in the early 90s. House music with music producers, and I'd watch the way they work. And I was just so fascinated. I don't know what it is. I just wanted to be in the studio. I loved all the equipment. Believe it or not, this is how superficial I am. I was attracted to the equipment more than the craft of songwriting. So that early fascination, I started I'm making this sound easy, but it was a lot of drudgery. I somehow broke into singing on commercials back in the mid to later 90s. And I was singing for different composers, and there was someone who saw me live at, remember Genghis Cohen?
Of course.
So
I
I
have
was
a lot
doing
of friends that
shows there.
performed there. Great,
Yeah,
great little like coffee house place, or, really
yeah.
interesting space.
It was really great, and it gave me a foundation. And anytime somebody would say something lovely to me, I'd say, "Hey, by any chance, do you compose for commercials?" I was really hustling. I mean, and there was one who said, "Yes, I'm going to help you." And a year later, he brought me in because I was raised in Puerto Rico for part of my childhood.
Mhm.
And there was remember that Yo Quiero Taco Bell commercial?
Oh, yes.
He brought me in to be the female dog, and all I had to
Oh,
do,
wait. I'm just okay.
well, there was, I didn't get used on any others, but except for that very first, I guess you'd call it the flagship, or the OG commercial. And so all I had to do was improvise and go, "Te quiero," like with the little female doggy. And so that happened, and I'd go down there did you ever hear of Elias Arts? They were a very big, very, very successful music house back in the day,
Okay.
80s, 90s. So I started doing work there. I'd come in for sessions, and it was very fun. But
I just want to interrupt you and tell everybody that Kathie and I did a theater production of Grease. She played Frenchie and I was Sandy. And Kathie is a wonderful singer.
not
So,
anymore.
and I'm pretty critical of female singers. We had several, well, we had a lot of amazing singers in that show, but Kathie is a wonderful singer. So
Oh,
when I say Kathie is a wonderful singer, the people who know me, who know how critical I am of singers, will know, the people who know me very well know how I have very high standards about singers. Kathie is a wonderful singer. She has an amazing
as
voice.
are you.
So you know, I am not surprised at all that you would get work as a singer because you had a wonderful voice, a wonderful singer.
Well, I didn't want to, thank you. I didn't want to perform live anymore. Something, I don't know how to say this, but I was over it. The
Yeah,
rehearsing, ugh, and so I was just so fascinated by studio life. I would just
yeah,
perch.
yeah.
And that one particular composer said to me, "You're a great hang," because I would just come in there, I'd sing, and I'd hang out for hours watching. Or sometimes I'd say, "Hey, why don't you, if you don't mind me saying, add that there, that would be," and he'd go, "Great," so he liked my ideas. But and then I started singing for other composers, and I had the opportunity to get in or get involved with other music houses.
Mhm.
And um then I started making enough money to get my first computer, frankly, and it was a Mac, the Mac 7600. And I started buying, that's like 1998 or something.
Mhm.
So I bought Logic Audio when it was called eMagic.
So you got into technology early. You started enjoying working with technology early.
God, I don't know if that's early because it was the
Well, I mean, for me it is because
hmm.
we were making the transition from as editors
Oh yeah.
from Mag to Pro Tools. Let me see, 98. Were we in Pro Tools by then? I'm trying to think. I think
I think you
we were
were.
still making the transition because I
Oh.
think I was editing first from Mag to Cyberframe or Waveframe and then Pro Tools. So
Mhm.
yeah. I mean, I was still just learning email then, sweetheart. So it's
Wow.
early. I'm
Wow.
just
Wow.
98. I am just starting to learn email. I remember very clearly.
Oh
So
my gosh.
yes, dear, you were an early adapter.
Wow. I'm an
Yeah.
OG.
Yeah.
So, well, I was just so fascinated. So I bought this software, and there's two to 3 people that I'm still friendly with today, and they just knew my hunger. Because, and what I would do was, back then I would just record my voice on the fly, just doing exploration. That's the precursor to today. And I would buy like sample CDs of music samples and Foley-esque type of sounds,
Sure.
and just manipulate and pull and stretch and pitch and reverbs and delays. I didn't even know what I was doing. And that's when a music genre called drum and bass and it was happening, and house music, and early what we call today EDM. And
Right.
I was really into rhythm from the get-go. And I would,
So why do you suppose, because why do you suppose you got into rhythm so soon? What do you suppose in your life got you interested in rhythm? Because I think, you and I both would, you said it too. What we are informs what we become later. What we do in the past informs how we approach something now. For example, I would say for me, growing up, dancing and
mhm,
singing, and then in theater informed the way
yes.
I approached being a Foley artist. Because I had a degree in theater, but I started out as a ballet and then tap dancer, and then I got into jazz.
Oh, wow.
And then I was in choirs early. Um,
Mhm.
and all of that informed the way I approached being a Foley artist.
Wow,
So,
yes.
and then I became an editor, and then I had my own ADR group. So,
Oh, wow.
so all of that informs the way I approach ADR. Okay. So, what do you think got you into the focus of rhythm?
I think I know exactly what it is, and I've never been asked this before. So I lived in Puerto Rico from the ages of 6 to 15. And I don't know, I'm sort of making this up on the fly, but it's my gut feeling, is that from our terrace, we lived in San Juan, across the lagoon, I'd hear those like bongos and those, what are they called? Steel
Yes,
drums.
the steel drums.
And
Yes.
that it would make me feel so happy to hear that. And I'm assuming that got into my DNA. And then jumping years and years later, I went to Studio 54, as like an 18, 19-year-old before I moved to LA.
Mm-hmm.
And I loved that. I can't lie to you. I loved disco, the
Right.
string arrangements. It was amazing. People
Right.
don't realize the beauty.
So then you start working with this technology and you're starting to get really interested in the tools and what they can do for you.
Yes. And I was singing for some different music houses, and there was one I said, "Hey, I've started putting together tracks. Can I have you hear what I'm doing?" And it was the owner. I don't know if you know who he is, Jeff Cause, Dave Cause's brother. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And he really saw me, the expression, I feel seen. And he said, "Do you want to take a stab at sometimes trying some of this, for demos?" And I said, "Yeah, you don't have to pay me because I'm game. I'm game to just, I want to see where I can go with this." So he took me up on that, and they started sending me briefs. I really didn't know what I was doing, but what happened was that I started winning some of these here and there. Some of they call winning when you get a final in a commercial.
Mm-hmm.
And what I would do is occasionally collaborate with, let's say, a guitarist, or I just knew early on I couldn't fully produce myself, except for when it was very electronic. So it's when electronica was very big.
Mm-hmm.
It was like not a lot of live instrumentation for some years in
Right.
there,
Right.
and it was rhythmically based. So I started getting some of these, and people started taking me seriously. And then I won various commercials, and then I got dated. And one music producer, that music house that I worked with, she said, and I'm being very honest here, she said, your work is falling flat and you need to figure out something. Either collaborate with somebody who plays live instruments, or I can't have you do this. And I was like, all right, let's step up to the plate. So I started collaborating, and then more winning would happen. And then I started getting burned out, you know, around 2010. But I continued, and those were the years that I was doing pretty well. But the overnights of where you're given a brief and then you have to deliver by 9 a.m. the next morning. Oh my
What does
gosh.
that mean? So what does it mean when you're, for those who don't do what you do, given a brief and then having to do something overnight? What is that process?
They send you, and they always say the same thing, looking for something unexpected. The same
Oh, so it's like,
goddamn
it's a
dialogue.
prompt. It's kind of like a prompt.
Yes. And they may send you a few temp tracks to hear, but not
We need
copy.
something purple.
Oh, basically. Yeah, and I mean, I don't have any of those to refer back to, because it actually gave me PTSD after a while. I was
Yeah.
like, I've had enough. And something happened starting in 2009. Did you know Chick Ciccolini?
Yes.
I love him.
Yes.
So Chick, I met him socially with his wife, and I said, "Can you give me a shot? I I I do vocal, design. I've been exploring." And he checked out things that I was exploring, and he said, "Why don't you come down to Sony? And I'm working on this thriller horror feature." It was called The Roommate back then. And I was fooling around, and he gave me stems of the actors who did the looping, and he said, "Show me how you can manipulate this." And he was submitting things to the director, but the director said that my work was way too disturbing, apparently. So I really specialize in disturbing, but it was great. And through him, I met Howell Gibbons.
Yeah, I know how to.
And he said, "I might want you to do some work on my Captain America." Oh my God. So, he gave me a shot, and I worked on it, with him, and some of it stuck.
Yeah.
And that was my entry into sound design. But, there was a thing where I'd always say to people, hey, which is a little bit dumb, but not. Let me just give me a shot. You don't have to worry about the money. I'm making money, over here. Because I just wanted to have an opportunity to get in some doors.
So your work is a combination of using sound effects, music, and your voice.
Yes, but
And that's
now,
what I find intriguing.
yeah, but now it's more musical. In these last couple of years, it's
Huh?
way more musical, but it's not scoring, and they don't change keys in trailer
No,
music.
no, no. I was listening. You use sound, you use music for atmospheric effect,
Yeah,
and you're using logic.
yes,
Yeah. Yeah.
but all kinds of sample libraries. Or let's say I hear something Chick taught me. He said, no, use your iPhone and just record it live wherever you go. If you hear something that he said, with all this expensive equipment, he said, I've used my iPhone. That's what he said to me years ago.
So I mentioned earlier the idea of musique concrète, which for people who may not understand the term It's the idea that ordinary objects
Mm-hmm.
in our world create a sense of sonic or musical atmospheric
Yeah.
sense.
A
And
feel.
it's a term, I mean, it's actually a term in music theory and sound theory.
Mm-hmm.
And so tell me how that inspired you, because you're the first person who actually, you have this on your website that it's one of your inspirations. How did that come into play as a source of inspiration for you?
Oh, I don't know how this will be articulated, but I believe I'm a very visceral person, and I work with feeling more than anything, more than theory. I a sound. I've just always been so in life I can't deal with noise, but yet I'll work with very aggressive sounds,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm fascinated, and I can do this for hours on end. But out in life, I can't hear babies or little kids. I mean, it's all related, but I'll just take, let's say, um, like a rock, and a bit like a big stone. There's actually a sample library that just came out that has a lot of found sounds. There's a company called Ferrum that's a very good company with the music libraries that they're using, Ferrum or Heaviosity. Uh, and you just make rhythms out of these. You have to hit things on a downbeat so editors can want to cut to your track.
Mm-hmm. It would be interesting for them to see what I noticed in your in your sample reel on your website is that there is a place where you do downbeats and rhythms that follow the action, where the action follows downbeats,
Yes.
and they're like musical downbeats, but they're sound effect
Yes.
downbeats. And I noticed that in some of the work
Impacts.
that yes, and they're very much what a sound effects editor would do for impacts, but they're
Mm.
musical, but they're atmospheric. And
Okay.
coming from post-production sound is something that I noticed that you do. So when I'm looking at what your work is, what I notice is it feels like a musical sound effect atmospheric thing, but as a Foley artist is something I would have been sensitive to as well. So
Mhm.
when I was watching your reel, and this is something else I noticed, is there's a
Huh.
wide variety of genre.
Yeah.
Um,
Mostly horror thriller,
yes, but
psychological.
but 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 there were also some subtler
Oh yeah.
moments.
Yeah,
It
yeah, yeah.
wasn't all um
In your
it
face.
wasn't always uncanny. Some of it was subtler, setting like a bed of something that might lead to something else. It
Hmm.
wasn't always the disturbing, uncanny stuff. Sometimes it was a bed of something that looked like it might lead to something else. And I think it's important for our viewers and listeners to understand that if you're going to be working for the uncanny or the disturbing, that you don't just constantly pound that down, that sometimes
No,
you're
no, no, no.
feeding to it.
Yeah, it's basically different. It's building different acts.
Mm-hmm.
And now I'm actually working with another publisher who gets what they call a lot of customs, where they have those overnight pressure cooker.
Mm.
I told them I cannot deal. I that almost made me leave the whole business. But what I'll do is do tracks for you to submit. So he's pushing me in a whole giving me a whole new experience where he'll say, I need more stops. And he calls it this such a weird word, suckbacks, like, and he'll say, give me more of those. You'll
Mm-hmm.
start a track, and within 6 seconds he wants a suck back, and then you'll continue. and building. Oh my gosh. It's so hard actually for me.
Do you find I'm wondering about this because you said that you don't really like to hear some of the noises that are out in the world. So I'm going to throw this out because I will reveal something about myself and ask if it's something you might share. I'm a highly sensitive person.
Yeah.
And so for people who don't know what that means, it's actually a neurological thing. It's not a mental or emotional thing.
Okay.
It's neurological, where my neurological system gets triggered by too much stimulation, visual, auditory, too much going on.
Yes.
So if there are too many people or too many noises, or the noises are too loud, or there's too much light, or there's too much happening, I get overstimulated and I have to have quiet. So I don't live where it's really noisy.
Yeah.
I can't be around too many people for too long. I can't. And when you say babies crying and children and everything, even though I really
Dogs.
like to be around people because I'm naturally an extrovert, I can
Yes.
only take it for so long. Then I have to go home and be quiet and decompress. I have to meditate. I have to have quiet. I have to live where it's kind of quiet.
Mm-hmm.
And it's really odd because my life has been music, performance, sound.
Yes.
And yet I have to get away. And so when you said that, I thought, I wonder if Kathie is a highly sensitive person where too much causes her to overstimulate and she has to get away and decompress. And then you can control the sounds that you make because I know that's true for me. And so, as much as I love creating sounds, and I'm a singer and a songwriter, and I'm writing a
Yeah.
musical about Foley, I need a certain amount of decompressing where it's really quiet.
Yeah.
Because if I get into too much uncontrolled noise, and the world is an assault of noise,
Phew.
I get really nervous, and it's not emotional and it's not mental.
Yeah.
It's actually neurological. And I'm wondering if that is true for you too.
Oh my gosh. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And there are a lot of dogs in Mexico City barking. So I have to play music. I have to. I also have tinnitus in my right ear.
Mhm.
So I have to have white noise when I sleep. Complete silence is not my friend.
You're an artistic person and you're a sensitive person, but your work is curated. It's not out of control. It's very specific and curated, and it's
Yeah.
precise. And I'm one who really appreciates precision.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't like things that are out of control and messy. I like precision. And so I think one of the reasons I was attracted to what it was you were doing, and when I brought the students to do the film with you that we did back in 2017
Yeah.
into 2018, the film on women in film sound. Your apartment was very curated and very precise, and the way you spoke about it was very precise. You have a way of looking at this in a very precise and curated way where you know very specifically what it is you want, how you want to approach it, and what you want to do. And as I look at your reel, your choices are very precise. There's no excess. There's no
Mm-hmm.
excess. And in film theory, there's this whole theory about excess and whether an excess can be used in film theory to create another kind of film art. But what I see in the way you do things is there's no excess. And I'd like to know how you came to the way you do your film sound as having no excess, that you cull it so that it's exactly what you want. How do you start out with more and remove it, or do you know exactly
Yes.
what you want from the very beginning?
No, no, no. I mean, it's a lot of trial and error. And the, we'll call it the trailer publishers that I work with, they are tough. They are really tough, especially now, because what's happened in 2017, I was sort of getting lucky with but I didn't know what I was doing yet. As far as making a track, I was, I was strong. I had a strong sense of sound. So a lot of individual sounds were getting licensed back then because it is music licensing.
Mm-hmm.
And then I would say starting at the end of 2020, I had a friend talk to me who said, you make great sounds, but if you really want to be getting more whole tracks licensed, you need to work on your acts. You need to work in risers, you need to work in your downbeats, you need to work in your fills. He was really, this friend of mine really helped me. And it worked out for some of these pieces that I did. And in 2021, one of them was used in a Netflix with Jake Gyllenhaal called The Guilty.
Mhm.
And that helped me be a part of the Clio Award winning campaign because my work was very featured, but the editors, this is what they do. They splice and dice your work and make it work to picture and how they want. So it's very rare that a whole track will ever just be used. So so I'm given notes, like revision notes. I'm doing this in hopes that things will stick. So when you've been doing editing, you are on a salary. I'm not on a salary. I'm like a real estate agent or trying to sell a book. I mean, you know what I'm saying.
Mm-hmm.
So I have to try and make this be as winning as possible. And before, I used to feel a little bit defensive when they'd give me notes. I'm like, it's good enough. But now I'm like, I shut my mouth and I'm like, okay, so what are you asking? And they write very detailed notes. And now I've become so OCD about notes that when somebody doesn't give me decent notes, I am very concerned. And so it's made me eliminate some people that I work with. These tracks, you never know if they're going to see the light of day. Meaning, I don't know if they're what film campaign they'll get in, trailer campaign. So it's a very hit and miss. You're like throwing darts against the wall and you're creating such a body of work. But I just want to tell you that yesterday and over the weekend, some of my specific sound design, let's say even a breath, but the way I affected it, those three things are from 2017 and they just got licensed now. I had something from 2011 get licensed for that film called Thanksgiving. It was me doing like something really weird vocal effecty. So you never know. It's creating a
Yeah.
catalog. It's so
You
random.
know, this is a good reminder for all of us who are creatives that when we put things out there and we want a response and we want a reaction and we want people to appreciate what we do,
Yeah.
the hardest thing about being a creative is, and it's so different from people who have what I would say jobs. Being a creative, it's so different from when I did academic work where I went in and I taught my class or I wrote my article or I wrote the book. When you're a creative, you just put the work out there unless you're in a play or you're,
Yep.
you know, and you don't know
Never know.
when there will be a response. I've been working on this musical, for example, which is called Holy Foley, Holy
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Foley. I started writing the songs for this well, some of the songs were tunes from way back. But as far as writing these particular songs, I started in 2015 before I broke my leg when I was at Ball State as an endowed chair. And then it went on hiatus for years. Then I
Yeah.
started working on it again in 2021. And I started the libretto in 2022. And then I started in seriousness in 2023. And then I started doing some of the orchestration, minor arranging with people last year in 2023. And I am still, and I have 13 iterations of it. I've gone to a
Wow.
dramaturge, I've gone to directors, I've gone to actors, and I had a table read in New York with actors and still struggling with it. And it's in decent shape to keep working. But, and then this podcast, you don't know when people are listening. We creatives, whatever the work is, unless you are for hire, you have no idea when it's being received or how or when it will get any response. And it is the strangest feeling. It's like it goes out in the ether, and then you just work on faith that,
Total faith and technique and
uh-huh,
hopefully your relationships.
yeah. And especially now with Zoom, where you're not even collaborating in real world with real people in real time. I expressed this to a friend recently. I feel like I'm in a bubble and I go around and I hit other people in other bubbles. And then I come back and I'm by myself. And I'm kind of an extrovert who needs people. So it's really a hard adjustment. Then I go around and I hit another bubble and then I come back and then I go hit another bubble and I'm back. And it's a very difficult adjustment. And it's such a different world than when you and I were younger and we were always around people
Oh,
collaborating
yeah.
in space all the time. So this idea that what you're saying is you put it out there and you go, well, I don't know, maybe someone will pick it up, maybe they won't. And you're creating. I want to ask you, you were talking about some films that you worked on that I didn't mention when I introduced you. I would love to know, as we wrap up here, I'd like you to talk about some projects you worked on in particular that you're excited about, that you've worked on in the past, that you'd like to share, what you worked on and what you did that you'd like to share and talk about.
Oh, thank you. One of them, which is now considered much older, is the one Get Out. Nobody knew that it was going to really hit. And this is before I really knew how to do tracks. I guess whoever it was at Universal, the music supervisor for trailers, liked different elements from 4 of my tracks, especially when you look at that trailer, that one thing that goes, I don't remember what I did. I took a metallic element with my voice and pitched up my voice and put it through a reverb, and it became a signature sound for that. So they spliced and diced 4 of my tracks that just all had interesting sounds. The tracks themselves, to be honest, were a mess because I didn't know what I was doing. And I'm not being self-deprecating. I'm just being very honest.
Right.
Because now, sitting here with you, it's like, I know exactly what I'm doing.
Of course.
So now I'm almost cocky. No, all these years later. So they took those and they spliced and diced it, starting from 31 seconds until the end of the trailer, I guess 2.5 minutes. They used my sound and they also combined it with whoever was in editorial. And their sounds, like you hear that high pitch, I can't even do it, with a clink to a coffee cup.
Call me Dean and you're hungry, my man.
So how long has this been going on, this thing? We hired Georgina and Walter to help care for my parents. When they died, I couldn't bear to let them go.
Do you smoke in front of my daughter?
I'm gonna quit.
She'd take care of that for you.
How?
Hypnosis.
I'm good, actually.
a combination of my sound and their sound. And they just used my sounds all over that trailer. And it was one of those moments because I was sitting in a theater, a film theater, a movie theater. Oh my God. And this was, I think, like the very end of 2016 when we get our SAG, where you can see everything.
The
And I
screeners,
went,
yeah, yeah.
it was amazing. And I went to a theater late at night and just sat there, and on that big screen, that trailer, and I was like,
Yeah.
oh my God. It was a very exciting moment. But let's jump to now. And the first thing on, I believe, on my trailer reel is something called Sanctuary, an AMC show. And it was a piece of music where they kept giving me revision after revision. And I was gritting my teeth. I actually lost it at one point, and I said, I can't take it anymore. Can't this be done? I think I spent 60 hours on that track.
Yeah.
And they it got used at the end of 2023, and the trailer came out at the beginning of 2024. And it was what I really loved about this was that it incorporated a little bit of hip hop elements. It incorporated me having to figure out string parts. I am not that kind of musician, but I really pulled it out of a hat. You have much more theory behind you than I do, and you understand key changes much more than I do. You know, I just go with my feel. I'll know
Yeah.
what key something is in, of course, but as far as like go to the minor third.
The whole town's traumatized.
My son just died.
We have a murder investigation on our hands.
Witchcraft was used.
This is an illegal spell book. It contains the darkest of dark magic.
That power in the wrong hands.
Heavenly Father, purge this curse! She killed him. The whole town's lost its mind. Sarah Ben alone is responsible!
She'll face the death penalty.
They're going to be coming for us.
Keep your hands off my daughter.
What's happening?
Everything in Sanctuary has just blown up.
How can that happen? The darkness they conjure.
Arrest Sarah!
Become a monster.
Guess what, witch? It's only just begun.
And so now I can sit here, and it's just frankly perfect timing that you asked me to do this with you, because now back in 2017, I was still feeling like a guest in my life.
Yeah.
And today I feel like I own my life.
Yeah.
I'm just being very transparent.
Well, that's a wonderful way to end this. Thank you so much for being here. This
Thank
has
you.
been an absolute joy.
Well, this felt like a gift too, for me.